Have you ever been interrupted mid-sentence? Maybe in a meeting, at dinner, or during a conversation with someone who clearly wasn't listening. You're making your point carefully, respectfully, and boom, someone jumps in, steamrolls the moment, and completely derails your thought. It stings. But more than that, it's a subtle act of disrespect. And yet, the way you respond in that moment can define how others perceive your strength for weeks, sometimes even years. Most people fall into one of two traps. They either get flustered and give up, shrinking away quietly, or they lash out, letting their emotions dictate the tone of the room. But you're here for something different. You want to respond with strength, not struggle. With command, not chaos. And for that, we turn to a timeless principle of Stoicism: silence is power. When you're interrupted, overlooked, or tested in public, your first response should not be words, it should be stillness. Let's unpack why this works, how to master it, and how to use it in daily life to quietly earn more respect than any outburst ever could. 1. Let silence do the talking. In our hyperverbal, always-on culture, silence feels almost alien. We've been trained to fill every pause, defend every idea, and never lose face. But here's the Stoic truth: you don't earn respect by how loudly you speak, but by how little you need to speak to hold your ground. When someone interrupts you and you don't react, you signal something rare: emotional mastery. You're saying, "You may have spoken over me, but I'm not shaken. I'm still here, still anchored." That's the kind of presence that makes people take notice, not with fear, but with admiration. The gaze that reclaims the room. So what do you do when someone cuts you off in a conversation or tries to dominate the floor? Don't flinch, don't argue. Just look at them. Hold eye contact, not with aggression, but with unwavering calm. This gaze is not a challenge, it's a reminder: I was speaking, and I haven't given that space away. This moment, this pause creates a tension that doesn't escalate, but rather redirects. The room picks up on it. The interrupter senses it. And more often than not, they'll either backpedal or awkwardly finish their thought and give the space back. And if they don't, you simply say, in a neutral tone, "Let me finish what I was saying." That's it. No drama, no fight. Just steadiness. You've just shown the room you won't be steamrolled, and you didn't even have to raise your voice. Why this technique works so well? Let's break it down psychologically. When you respond to an interruption with silence and stillness, you take control of the tempo. The interrupter was trying to speed up or dominate the conversation. Your pause resets the rhythm and reminds everyone you're still in control of your moment. You avoid looking defensive. Defensive reactions weaken your stance. Silence, paired with eye contact, makes you appear composed and self-assured. You force the room to pay attention. People are drawn to whoever controls the rhythm of a conversation. When you pause intentionally, the room leans in. This is how silent power works. It speaks through presence, not performance. A real-life example. Let me tell you a quick story. A former client of mine, we'll call him Chris, once shared a moment from a high-stakes executive meeting. He was presenting a pitch he had spent weeks preparing. Midway through, a senior colleague interrupted with a dismissive joke, clearly trying to undercut him. Chris didn't argue. He didn't laugh along. He simply turned to the interrupter, held eye contact for 2 full seconds, and said nothing. The silence was palpable. Then, calmly and without skipping a beat, he said, "As I was saying," and continued. After the meeting, multiple people approached him, not to praise the pitch, but to say, "I don't know how you stayed so calm, but that was impressive." That one moment earned Chris more respect than the actual content of his presentation. And here's the best part. He didn't do it to manipulate anyone. He did it because he practiced composure as a daily discipline. That's Stoicism in action. Practicing the technique. Let's bring this into your everyday life. Because the truth is, you don't need a boardroom to use this. You'll get interrupted by a friend who always talks over you, a coworker who tries to correct you mid-sentence, a family member who thinks they're funnier or louder. Your goal is not to win the exchange. Your goal is to anchor the room with your steadiness. Try this. When interrupted, pause for 2 seconds. Make calm eye contact, steady, not glaring. Wait. Let the moment hang. Then say, "Let me finish," or simply continue your thought without skipping a beat. The key is to practice this before it happens. Try it in low-stakes settings. Notice how people respond. You'll see very quickly you don't need to fight for respect. You can earn it with restraint. What the Stoics would say. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic minds, said, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak." But listening isn't just about being quiet, it's about choosing when to speak. The Stoic doesn't fill space to prove their worth. They speak with clarity, and they pause with purpose. Your silence is not emptiness, it's power. It's what separates you from the reactive crowd. It's what turns a forgettable moment into a defining one. Final thought for part 1. Next time someone tries to rattle you with interruption or disrespect, don't meet their noise with more noise. Meet it with presence. Hold your ground. Let the silence speak. And when you do speak, make it count. Because in a world full of people shouting to be heard, your silence might be the loudest thing in the room. 2. Ask them to repeat the joke. You're out with friends feeling relaxed, maybe even having a rare moment where you finally let your guard down. And then it happens. Someone drops a so-called joke, a dig dressed in humor directly aimed at you. It might be a personal story they think is funny at your expense. Maybe they tease you about your past, your job, your appearance, or something deeply private. Everyone laughs. You fake a smile, but inside, you're humiliated. And worse, it feels intentional. We've all been there. And most of us react in one of 2 ways. We laugh it off, bury the discomfort, and let the moment pass, only to replay it later with regret. We fire back, make a sharp comment, or try to humiliate them in return. Both options seem logical, but neither truly protects your dignity. That's where Stoic psychology gives us a better path, one that quietly reclaims power without ever raising your voice. So here's the move. When someone mocks you with a joke, calmly ask them to repeat it. Simple, right? But this single line spoken without emotion, without sarcasm, is one of the most quietly devastating responses you can give. Let's explore why it works, how to use it without sounding petty, and how it earns you lasting respect from people who might not even realize what they just witnessed. The hidden weapon in asking for a repeat. You might be thinking, why would I want to hear that insult again? Because you're not actually asking to hear it again. You're asking the room to hear it again. And this time, stripped of timing, surprise, and social momentum, the joke almost always falls flat. Why? Because humor, especially sarcastic or mocking humor, relies on speed and audience tension. But when you ask them to repeat it, that rhythm is broken. The momentum dies. The tone shifts from lighthearted fun to awkward spotlight. Now they're the one under scrutiny. That casual throwaway jab? It suddenly sounds meaner, smaller, and far more uncomfortable when said twice. The room feels it. They feel it. And you've just managed to flip the power dynamic without losing composure. What makes this so effective? Here's the psychology behind why this technique works. You stay calm, they get exposed. While they expected a laugh or an angry reaction, They now face the tension of repeating their words aloud. Knowing full well the energy has shifted, you signal boundaries subtly. You're saying, I noticed that. I'm not going to react emotionally, but I will hold space for what just happened. You invite others to examine what was said. Instead of forcing the group to take sides, you prompt a moment of reflection. Most people, when hearing an insult repeated out of context, recognize its cruelty. This is classic Stoicism in action, responding with control, allowing natural consequences to unfold without needing to force them. A real story. The joke that turned. Let me give you an example. A man named Joel, quiet, thoughtful, not known for confrontation, once found himself the target of a class reunion roast. One of his old friends blurted out a funny story about Joel getting rejected in high school, complete with exaggerated details and a punchline that made the table howl with laughter. Everyone was waiting for Joel to blush, to laugh awkwardly, to move on. Instead, he smiled gently and said, "Can you say that again?" Silence. The storyteller froze. The whole thing?" Joel nodded. "Yeah, I want to make sure I heard you right." Now the spotlight shifted. As the guy stammered through the story again, people started realizing just how juvenile and off-color it sounded. Without any attack, Joel had completely changed the emotional charge of the moment. And here's what's fascinating. The tone of the group shifted. The mocker stayed quiet the rest of the night. And Joel walked away not only unshaken, but respected. Why? Because he refused to play the clown or the victim. He chose self-respect over ego. And people noticed how to deliver this in real life. You don't have to memorize a clever comeback. You don't need a dramatic pause. You don't even need to glare. All you need is your tone and your posture. When someone cracks a disrespectful joke at your expense, let the room settle. Look directly at them, not with fire, but with curiosity. Say, "Can you repeat that?" Or, "Sorry, what was that again?" Hold your gaze, stay calm. Don't explain. Don't smile. Let the silence do the rest. They'll either realize what they said and backpedal, or they'll repeat it and expose themselves in the process. Either way, you didn't react. You responded. That's the key. What the Stoics would do. Stoicism isn't about being emotionally numb. It's about choosing what deserves your energy. As Marcus Aurelius said, "If anyone can refute me, show me. I'm making a mistake, I'll gladly change. But if they simply insult me or mock me, I must not lower myself by becoming like them." The power of asking someone to repeat a joke is that it refuses to meet insult with insult. It doesn't try to prove anything. It just makes the situation unmistakably clear. And that's what earns you respect, not by shutting people down, but by revealing their behavior without attacking them. Tip: use the group dynamic. You don't need to turn this into a teachable moment. But sometimes, a well-placed silence can invite the group to reflect for you. If someone repeats their insult and it lands flat, don't jump in to save them. Don't offer a smile to ease the tension. Let the silence breathe. Then, continue on with grace. Because when you don't get rattled, when you refuse to take the bait, you show the room something rare. You are not to be trifled with. Not because you're defensive, but because you're centered. The bigger picture life is full of subtle tests. People test your boundaries in ways they often don't realize. Humor is one of them. But every time you handle it with calm composure, you reinforce your self-worth, not just to them, but to yourself. This is the quiet strength the Stoics wrote about. You don't have to raise your voice to raise your value. You just have to refuse to shrink in the face of subtle disrespect. So the next time someone makes a joke at your expense, smile, then ask, "What was that?" Watch how fast the room remembers who they're dealing with. 3. Redirect with an unrelated question. Pick, you're sitting at a family dinner, a holiday gathering, or even a casual lunch with coworkers. The conversation is light, the mood easy until someone decides to sub. Still single, huh? Muzz real. Responsible. Guess that, ouch, everyone hears it. The remark wasn't just random, it was designed to get under your skin. And now all eyes are on you, watching for your reaction. You feel a heat rise in your chest, the familiar tension building. Do I say something? Snap back? Laugh it off? But instead of engaging, instead of reacting the way they expect, you do something completely unexpected. You take a breath, and you say, "Hey, does anyone know a good Thai place nearby? I've been craving something spicy." Wait, what? Yes, that's the move. A completely unrelated, calm, casual question that flips the script without playing the game. This is what we call a Stoic redirection, one of the cleanest, most graceful ways to maintain self-respect without escalating conflict, and it works shockingly well. Why it's so disarming when someone tries to provoke you. What they really want is your reaction. That's the reward. If you argue, they've won. If you get flustered, they've won. If you make it awkward and defensive, they've won. But when you drop an unrelated question out of nowhere, their entire rhythm is broken. The audience gets confused. The energy shifts instantly. And you walk away in control. It's verbal judo. Instead of resisting force with force, you redirect the momentum with calm, deliberate unpredictability. It doesn't look like power. But that's exactly why it is power. The psychological shift. Let's break down what's actually happening here, beneath the surface. When you ask an unrelated question in the face of an insult, you take control of the narrative. The conversation is no longer about their dig. It's about your question. You stay emotionally sovereign. You demonstrate that their attempt to rile you up didn't even register as worthy of a response. You subtly remind the group, "I won't perform your drama." And that's something people respect, even if they don't say it out loud. It's not avoidance. It's command without confrontation. This is advanced level restraint. And it's exactly what Stoic thinkers train for every day. A real-life example, let's talk about Mia. She was at a small birthday party, mostly family and a few old friends. Out of nowhere, one of her cousins, who always had a passive-aggressive edge, looked at her and said, "So, still job hunting, huh? That must be fun." Everyone chuckled politely, sensing the tension. Mia didn't flinch. She looked around the table, smiled, and said, "Has anyone tried that new bakery downtown? I heard their lemon tart is ridiculous." People blinked. Someone laughed. The cousin tried to follow up with another jab, but the conversation had already moved on. Later, two guests pulled Mia aside and said, "That was the smoothest dodge I've ever seen." But it wasn't a dodge. It was a pivot. Mia didn't ignore the insult, she overwrote it. She rewrote the script in real time. That's mastery. How to use it yourself. This doesn't have to be complicated. In fact, the simpler and more casual your redirection, the better. The key is to stay relaxed and act as if the comment didn't even register as meaningful. Here's a structure you can follow. Hear the jab. Internally pause for 1 second. Smile, optional. Ask a question completely unrelated to the insult. Examples. "Hey, anyone know what time that movie starts? Do you remember where we parked the car? What's that book you mentioned last time?" This doesn't just change the subject. It reclaims the energy of the room. And you never had to justify yourself. You never had to stoop. You just moved on. And that is unforgettable. What the Stoics would say. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus taught that the only thing we truly control is our response. Not what others say. Not what others do. Only how we choose to meet the moment, he wrote. It's not things that upset us, it's our judgments about them. When someone mocks or provokes, we judge it as an attack. We feel like we have to defend ourselves. But what if we didn't? What if we chose, instead, to float above it, redirecting the current of the conversation like water flowing around a stone? That's not weakness. That's wisdom. When not to use this technique, let's be clear. Not every moment calls for redirection. Sometimes, direct confrontation is necessary. Especially when patterns of behavior become toxic or dangerous, but in social settings, especially. When it's a single remark, a subtle dig, or a low-level provocation, this technique shines, because what it shows is this: I'm not avoiding you. I'm above this. And most people, once they realize they can't shake you, stop trying. The long-term impact when you practice Stoic redirection regularly, something deeper begins to happen. People learn that you're not an easy target. You begin to trust yourself to stay composed under pressure. And the room starts to treat you differently, because your energy becomes unshakable. And there's something quietly magnetic about someone who never gets pulled into petty drama. It's not about being cold. It's about being centered. You're not distant. You're grounded. And that's the kind of presence people remember. Final thought for part 3. The next time someone tries to poke at your insecurities or embarrass you in public, don't get defensive. Don't explain. Don't retaliate. Just pivot. Drop a casual question into the room like a stone in a pond. Let the ripples shift the conversation. Let the insult fade into silence, because you don't owe anyone your anger. You owe yourself your peace. And once you master this art of redirection, you become untouchable. 4. Master the 3-second rule before responding. You're in a tense conversation. Maybe someone just made a snide remark about your work, or someone disagrees with you in a way that feels less like healthy debate and more like an attack. Pulse spikes. Your mind starts spinning, crafting a perfect comeback, a clever retort, or maybe even a sarcastic takedown. The words are on the tip of your tongue. And then you remember, wait, don't say it yet. 3 seconds. Just wait. This is what we call the 3-second rule, a simple but powerful Stoic tool that can change the way people perceive you, and more importantly, the way you perceive yourself. It sounds easy, but in the heat of the moment, nothing feels harder. So why 3 seconds? Why is that tiny pause so important? And how can something so small command so much respect? Let's break it down. Why immediate reactions cost you power. Think about the last time you snapped at someone. Maybe they made a passive-aggressive comment, or questioned your decision in front of others, or challenged something you knew you were right about. You didn't mean to raise your voice. You didn't plan to sound defensive, but there you were, talking too fast, feeling the heat rise in your face, and later wondering, why did I say it like that? Here's the truth. Reacting too quickly almost always makes you look less in control. And in situations where respect is on the line, control is everything. What happens in those first 3 seconds, the first 3 seconds after a triggering comment, are where most of us lose the game. Why? Because in that tiny window, your amygdala, the brain's threat center, fires up. Your ego kicks in to protect your self-image. Your emotions start scripting your response before logic even shows up. But when you pause, just for 3 seconds, you give your rational mind a chance to take the wheel. You regain composure. You stop yourself from over-explaining, snapping, or posturing. And the best part, no one else even notices the pause. To them, you just seem collected. That calm exterior, it earns instant credibility. Real-life power in a 3-second pause. Let's talk about a real-world situation. A woman named Denise worked in a high-stakes consulting firm. During a project meeting, one of her colleagues challenged her proposal in front of the entire team. Not just a question, a condescending, "Are you sure you understand the scope of this, Denise?" The room went quiet. Everyone braced for a tense exchange. But instead of replying immediately, Denise just looked at him. She took a breath. 1, 2, 3. Then she calmly said, "Yes, and here's why." No snark, no flustered defense. Just clarity. The mood shifted. Even her colleague softened, because her calm under fire made her untouchable. That's the power of 3 seconds. You don't just win the moment, you own it. What the Stoics taught about impulse. Stoic philosophy has always emphasized the importance of space between stimulus and response. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." In modern terms, you can't control what others say, but you can absolutely control the tempo of your reply. And once you control the tempo, you control the tone of the room. The Stoics understood that immediate reactions are rarely wise reactions. They taught that emotional discipline is the root of dignity. And in that brief pause, you reclaim your dignity every single time. Practicing the 3-second rule. So how do you build this habit? Here's a simple framework you can use starting today. Notice the trigger. When someone says something that sparks an emotional reaction, silently label it. "That bothered me." This act of labeling helps you separate from it. Take the 3-second breath. Inhale through your nose. Slow. Count to 3 in your mind. Exhale without rushing. Choose your tone before your words. Before you even speak, ask yourself, how do I want to sound right now? Calm, neutral, curious? Let that tone shape your words, not the heat of your emotion. Then speak, slowly, clearly, with intention. Remember, you don't need to fill silence. You don't need to prove your intelligence in a rush. You're allowed to take your time. In fact, doing so signals that you're confident enough to be deliberate. What it looks like in different settings. This technique works in virtually any situation. At work, when someone questions your competence, pause. Don't defend. Ask them to clarify what they mean after 3 seconds. With family, when a parent or sibling makes a guilt-laden comment, pause. Smile. Respond in a calm tone that doesn't match their energy. In relationships, when a partner gets emotional or says something sharp, pause. Let them finish. Then respond with intention, not impulse. This isn't about bottling up your feelings. It's about giving your better self a chance to lead. Bonus. The power of underreaction. Here's something most people don't tell you. Underreacting is one of the most powerful ways to command respect. In a world where everyone is quick to fire back, complain, or correct, the person who stays calm stands out like a lighthouse in a storm. 3 seconds is all it takes to go from reactive to intentional. And once you master that pause, you become the kind of person who others think twice before disrespecting, because they know you don't rattle easily. Final thought for part 4. Respect isn't something you fight for. It's something you build in the quiet moments between the trigger and the response. The 3-second rule is not just a communication tool, it's a character builder. And every time you use it, you reinforce to yourself, I don't respond on their terms, I respond on mine. That's not just stoic. That's commanding. 5. Adjust your access without announcing it. Have you ever been around someone who always seems to have too much access to you? Maybe it's a coworker who constantly interrupts, a friend who drains your energy with endless complaints, or a relative who always finds a way to criticize your life choices at every family event. At first, you tolerated it. You told yourself, it's just who they are. But now, their presence in your life feels like a low-grade fever, never extreme, but always wearing you down. You don't want drama. You don't want a confrontation. But something has to change. What if I told you the Stoics have a solution? Adjust your access without announcing it. You don't need to ghost people. You don't need to deliver a grand speech or cut ties with fireworks. You just need to shift the dynamic. Silently. Let's unpack what this looks like, and why it earns more respect than any argument ever could. The quiet boundary. That speaks volumes. Most people think boundaries have to be loud to be effective. They imagine standing up in a meeting and declaring, "You will not talk to me that way." Or sending a 3-paragraph text to a friend saying, "I can't be around your negativity anymore." Sure, sometimes direct boundaries are necessary. But often, the most powerful boundaries are invisible. You don't announce them. You adjust them. You reduce your availability. You stop over-explaining. You reply when you're ready. You interact when it serves your peace, not when guilt or pressure demands it. And what's amazing? People notice, even if they can't articulate it. They feel the shift. And that quiet change in your energy often makes them reevaluate how they treat you. The Stoic foundation of access control. Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher, once said, "Keep your attention focused entirely on what is truly your own concern, and be clear that what belongs to others is their business and none of yours." Translation: you are responsible for what you allow into your emotional space. You don't owe anyone endless explanations. You don't owe everyone a front row seat to your life. Your attention, your energy is sacred. And when you begin treating it that way, others do too. That's why adjusting access isn't petty. It's principled. It's not cold. It's conscious, real-life story. The woman who stopped over-accommodating. Let's talk about Layla. Layla was the reliable one in her friend group. Always available. Always answering texts within minutes. She showed up to every get-together, helped friends move, loaned money, stayed up late for phone calls. You name it, she did it. But over time she noticed a pattern. The same people she dropped everything for didn't seem to respect her. They took her for granted. They made fun of how predictable she was. And then one day, something changed. Layla didn't make a big announcement. She just stopped responding immediately. She skipped a few events. She didn't offer help unless asked, and even then, only if she truly wanted to. She adjusted the access. And you know what happened? Some people drifted away. They were never invested in her, only in her availability. Others, they grew more respectful. They realized her time was valuable, and they treated it that way. No arguments. No drama. Just calm, quiet power. How to adjust access in your own life. Here are some practical ways to set Stoic-inspired boundaries without ever saying the words, "I'm setting a boundary." Respond slower. Not every message needs a reply within seconds. Pausing creates natural emotional space and signals that you prioritize your peace. Stop oversharing. You don't need to explain your every move. The less people know, the less they can weaponize. Be intentional with your presence. If a certain group or person leaves you drained, reduce your frequency, not to punish, but to protect. Control your yes. Saying yes out of guilt is emotional self-abandonment. Say yes when it aligns with your values, not just to avoid discomfort. Let silence do the work. You don't always have to correct someone. When someone disrespects you subtly, distance speaks louder than a lecture. Remember, silence isn't passive. It's strategic. Why you don't need to explain this is where most people struggle. They feel like they have to tell others what they're doing or why they're pulling back. But here's a truth most Stoics lived by. You are not obligated to provide access just because someone demands it. You can adjust your boundaries silently. And if someone really values you, they'll sense it and rise to meet your new standard. And if they don't, then their presence was conditional in the first place. When people push back, make no mistake, some people will notice the shift. And if they were benefiting from your over-accessibility, they may try to pull you back in. You'll hear things like, "You've changed. Why are you being so distant? Are you mad at me? Stay calm." Don't get baited into explaining. You can simply say, "Just taking a little more space for myself lately." That's it. No defense. No drama. Because when you refuse to over-explain, you protect your sovereignty. The subtle respect you earn. Here's the paradox. The people who really matter, those who respect you, won't need a detailed explanation. They'll feel the shift. And instead of resenting it, they'll start valuing your presence more when they have it. That's the shift you're aiming for. From taken for granted, gives to respected in absence. From emotionally accessible to everyone gives, to selectively present. That's how quiet boundaries build loud respect. Final thought for part 5. In a world where so many people chase attention, being someone who guards their attention is rare. But rare is powerful. You don't have to make an announcement. You don't have to burn bridges. You just have to value your own energy enough to stop giving it away so easily. The people who truly see you will understand. And the ones who don't? They were never meant to sit at your table anyway. So adjust the access, calmly, silently, unapologetically, and watch how the world starts to treat you differently. 6. Master the Stoic stare. Let silence speak for you. You're mid-conversation. You're explaining an idea, sharing a story, maybe expressing something important, and someone cuts you off. They interrupt, talk over you, hijack the moment. Suddenly, you're invisible. Now, you might feel the familiar urge to raise your voice, jump back in, or say something like, "Excuse me, I wasn't finished." But before you do any of that, stop, and instead, try something profoundly powerful: the Stoic stare. What's that? Exactly, it's not aggressive. It's not passive-aggressive. It's simple. You stop talking, you go quiet, and you look directly at the person who interrupted you with calm, collected, unbroken eye contact. You don't roll your eyes. You don't sigh. You don't smirk. You just look. 3 to 5 seconds. It feels like an eternity. And that silence? That unspoken moment? It speaks louder than any protest ever could. Why silence is a power move in most social situations. Silence is uncomfortable. People fill it, rush to end it, panic in it. But if you can sit in silence, especially when someone's behavior has disrespected you, it sends a signal: I'm not here to perform. I'm not here to scramble for attention. You reclaim your position by not scrambling to earn it. That calm, wordless pause, it forces the other person and everyone around to feel the imbalance they just created. That it's not about embarrassing anyone. It's about restoring your presence without raising your voice. A story of the unbroken gaze. I want to tell you about a man named Thomas. He worked in a corporate environment, long meetings, big personalities, lots of talking over one another. And every time Thomas would speak, one particular manager had a habit of cutting him off. No malice, just dominance. One day, mid-sentence, it happened again. Thomas was sharing a critical point. Boom, interrupted. But this time, he didn't apologize. He didn't fade. He just turned his head, locked eyes with the manager, and held it. Still, calm, direct. The manager faltered mid-sentence. The room went silent. Everyone felt the shift. Then Thomas calmly said, "Let me finish my thought." And he continued without drama, without anger. Guess what? That manager never interrupted him again, not because he was put in his place, but because Thomas showed he wouldn't compete for respect, he embodied it. That's the art of the Stoic stare, the psychology behind the gaze. Here's why this works so effectively. It breaks the autopilot loop. Most people interrupt out of habit, not hostility. Your silent gaze disrupts that loop. It triggers reflection. People suddenly realize, oh, I crossed a line. And you didn't even have to point it out. It shifts the power dynamic. You become the calm center of gravity. Others orbit you. It shows restraint. In a world where people rush to defend themselves, your stillness feels like strength. How to practice the Stoic stare. This doesn't require theatrical intensity. It's not about being intimidating, it's about being unshakable. Here's how to do it with subtlety and grace. Stay still, don't fidget, don't lean back. Just hold your position. Make direct eye contact, not a glare, not a squint. Just clear, steady focus. Keep your face neutral, no smirk, no sneer. No raised eyebrows. Let your silence be the message. Wait, and resume after 3 to 5 seconds. Pick up where you left off. No need to say, as I was saying. Just own your continuation. Practice it with friends, with coworkers, even in casual moments. Over time, your presence will start to carry more weight without you saying more. When to use it, and when not. To the Stoic stare works best in moments where you're interrupted, someone makes a dismissive joke at your expense. You feel the urge to defend yourself unnecessarily. Someone tries to dominate the conversation subtly, but avoid using it in situations that require softness or vulnerability, like intimate conversations or emotional moments with someone who's opening up. This is a respect recalibration tool, not a relational wall. What the Stoics would say, the Stoics didn't believe in drama. They believed in dignity. Marcus Aurelius once said, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be one." In the modern world, that translates to, stop trying to prove yourself in every conversation. Just be still, be clear, be unbothered. The people who respect that stillness are the ones worth keeping around. A bonus insight. Silence has emotional armor. When you master silence, you gain an incredible form of emotional armor. You're no longer reactive. You don't let every social jab pull you into the mud. You rise above, not with superiority, but with self-possession. In a noisy world, the person who doesn't flinch is magnetic. Because people feel it. You're not performing. You're not defensive. You're just anchored. And that's rare. Final thought for part 6. You don't need to yell to be heard. You don't need to dominate to be respected. You don't need to argue to prove you're right. Sometimes the most commanding thing you can do is look someone in the eye, say nothing, and then calmly carry on. The Stoic stare isn't about confrontation. It's about control of your emotions, your presence, your space. Because when you stop chasing validation, people start offering it. 7. Walking away without apology. The final act of self-respect. What do you do when you've tried everything? Calm conversation, boundary setting, adjusting your access, holding your gaze, and someone still refuses to treat you with respect? You don't argue, you don't beg. You don't create a dramatic exit. You simply walk away. No explanations, no apologies. Just presence, replaced by absence. And in that act of quiet departure, you deliver the most powerful message of all. I know my worth, and I won't negotiate it. This isn't about ghosting or holding a grudge. It's about practicing the ultimate Stoic discipline, choosing your peace over their approval. The misconception of endurance in our culture, especially in professional or personal settings, there's this unspoken badge of honor for putting up with it. We think, if I just stay longer, they'll see my value. If I keep giving, they'll appreciate me. If I'm patient enough, things will change. But here's what Stoicism teaches. There is strength in stillness, but also wisdom in withdrawal. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." Sometimes the way forward isn't through the fire. It's through the door, out, and onward. A story of quiet exit, let me tell you about. Jordan worked at a startup, high energy, fast pace, huge opportunity. But over time, the leadership became toxic. They would publicly shame team members for mistakes, ignore boundaries, use urgency to disrespect personal time subtly. Mock team members who asked for support. Jordan was a top performer. Everyone knew it. But he was miserable. At first, he tried all the tools, adjusted his access, had respectful conversations, even implemented clear expectations. But nothing changed. So one Monday morning, he walked in early, left a single-page resignation letter on the CEO's desk, packed up his desk, and walked out with no fanfare. He didn't send a farewell email. He didn't rant on LinkedIn. He didn't burn bridges. He left with calm, quiet dignity. 6 months later, he launched his own consulting business, and some of the very co-workers who once ignored his value became his clients. Walking away wasn't defeat, it was clarity. When walking away is respectful, not weak. There's a lie that says walking away means you couldn't handle it. But here's the truth. Staying in situations that degrade you, that's not strength. That's slow erosion. Enduring chronic disrespect isn't stoic. It's self-abandoning. Walking away from something that doesn't align with your self-worth. That's maturity. As Epictetus said, if someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation. Stoicism is about staying unprovoked. And sometimes, that means leaving the arena entirely. How to walk away with self-respect. Here's how you do it, without resentment, without regret. Be clear with yourself before you act. Know why you're leaving. Don't let impulse or emotion lead. Let principle guide you. Don't make it a performance. You don't owe anyone a dramatic farewell or mic drop moment. Walk out the same way you walked in, grounded. Protect your energy in the aftermath. You might feel guilt. You might feel second-guessed. That's okay. But stay anchored in this truth. Choosing yourself is not selfish, it's survival. Let your results speak louder than your exit. When you walk away from the wrong table, you make room for the right one. Focus on building what's next, not proving what they lost. Walking away in everyday life, it's not always as big as quitting a job or ending a major relationship. Sometimes walking away looks like logging off a group chat that always turns toxic, declining that dinner invite you used to accept out of obligation, taking a break from someone who crosses your boundaries without explaining every detail, letting go of the need to fix people who aren't asking to be fixed. These are micro moments of self-respect, and they add up. The power of absence. Here's what people rarely realize. Your absence can speak louder than your presence. When someone no longer has access to your energy, your listening ear, your support, they notice. And while they may never admit it, many will feel the shift. Some might come back with respect. Some won't. But by then, it won't matter because you've already moved on. Walking away, when done consciously, isn't a rejection of them. It's a commitment to you. What Stoicism teaches about letting go at its heart. Stoicism is not about being emotionally cold. It's about being emotionally sovereign. When something or someone disrespects that sovereignty consistently, you don't have to fight. You don't have to plead. You can just release. And here's the beauty. Letting go doesn't make you bitter. It makes you lighter. Final thought for part 7. Respect begins with how you treat yourself when no one else is watching. Every time you choose silence over arguing, distance over drama, peace over people-pleasing, you raise your own value, and eventually, the world rises to match it. So if you find yourself in a space where you're not seen, not heard, not respected, walk away, not with anger, not with noise, but with certainty, because nothing commands respect more than someone who knows they don't have to fight for it. Thank you for staying with me through all 7 Stoic strategies. If this resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below, tell me which strategy hit home, or simply write, "I walk with calm strength." And if you're ready to keep building your inner power, check out the next video I've linked on how to stay calm when everything around you feels chaotic. Until then, stay grounded, stay quiet, stay powerful. Your dignity doesn't need a microphone, just presence. See you in the next one.